Hey y'all, I'm Mayer Cunningham, the special education boss. If you've ever felt confused, overwhelmed, or just plain frustrated at the 504 IEP table, you are in the right place. Every week, I'm breaking down the rules, the rights, and the realities of special education so you can walk into meetings informed, empowered, and ready to make real change. And whether you're a parent, a teacher, an advocate, a school-based member, or somebody who's just trying to do right by a student, this podcast gives you straight talk, real answers, and tools that you can use immediately. I'm not here to play politics. I'm not here to play sides. I'm here to train people who sit at the table and teach you how to follow the law, ask the right questions, and protect the rights of students. So go ahead and hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change. We're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. Hey guys, welcome back. It is Monday. We love Mondays. Don't we love Mondays? Mondays are training for raining, right? So if we haven't met, I'm Mayer Cunningham, special education boss, training everyone that sits at the 504 IEP table to navigate and negotiate successful student outcomes. So I hope you had a great, fantastic, marvelous, massively successful Monday. Do you guys feel like sometimes Monday in the special ed world is like 3 days long? If we can get through Monday, we're probably crushing it, right? So I had a great Monday. We had a great weekend. We had all of our partners train and do team building without anything goofy. Have you guys ever been to team building or professional development and your school has asked you to do, goofy stuff like put together a gingerbread house? So we didn't do that, but we had a great time. So a couple of things, let me know in the comments if this is the right direction. I've convinced myself so many times that it's the right direction and not the right direction. I unmirrored it, which is what I think you're supposed to do, and then it looks right. So if you'll just tell me if it looks right. So thank you for all the likes, Angie. That's amazing. Oh, yes, it's correct. We love correct. And we love correcting. So we are on the downhill slide for special education for this year, right? But these meetings have got to be successful, and they can only be successful with amazing educators and evaluators and admin and parents and advocates. And so just know at this time of the year, it's highly likely that you may not completely finish your IEP meeting in one setting. And that's okay, right? That's okay. It's the end of the year. But we have to get it right. And so at this time of the year, people are really reevaluating. The entire 25-26 year has been completed. And so now parents are kind of reevaluating how it went. Was the setting successful? Those sorts of things. So tell me if you guys in the comments can see the TikTok shop where it has the book bundles. If somebody will look in there and show me, I mean, you can't show me, you can tell me because I can't see it. Do you see it? Because I don't know if you see it. I know if I see it. So we have our amazing books. I still don't see that on my laptop. Okay. Let's see. We need to have it. Let's see. Does anybody else see the... Oh. So many buttons, I shouldn't push them, right? Does anybody see the books in the TikTok shop, like a little link? I think it's a little orange purse, somebody told me. Do you guys see that at the bottom? Say, yes, I see it. No, I don't see it. I would like to see it. Nope. Marilyn said no. Okay. So let me just do some. Think that I would know how to, there we go. All right, so we're gonna get it fixed. It should be in just a second, it'll be an orange, a little orange. It's in your profile link. It is in our profile link, but it should be live. When we go live, it should come up at the bottom. So if you guys see it come up at the bottom, just tell me we see the orange thing. So you guys loved the Epic IEP. We're so thankful that you guys got this. a powerful playbook for parents, educators, and advocates navigating the IEP process. So that came out in January. This came out in February, the EPIC IEP, Guide to Federal and State Law for Special Education. So we did all the federal law, and then also every state's crosswalk, so you can compare them. And we're actually going to start training on this in the Advocate tonight, in the Advocate and Special Education Academy. And then our most popular book to date is the EPIC IEP Para. It's actually bigger than the first book, exactly what the requirements are, duties, obligations, and limitations under IDEA, No Child Left Behind, Every Student Succeeded Act, and the Elementary Secondary Education Act of 1965. And also it includes all of your state regulations on paraprofessionals. So you can see that right there. So all of these are together or separate in the TikTok shop. So you can just go to that link and look for them. And hopefully they'll show up in the little orange thing for you soon. I can't see it, only you can see it. So, and then Alan, if you are on here, which I'm sure you are, or any of the other kids, Linda, can one of y'all send me a Zoom link so I can kind of see you guys, and I'll open that on my other laptop. So we are going to be talking tonight about your questions. Your questions are important and we want to answer them. We are super excited that we almost finished this year. We're going out crushing it. We're gonna have an amazing summer. So here's some of the questions that we got in. We don't have our regular moderator tonight, so I'm gonna read them. So just bear with me. So first question, how can inclusive teaching strategies be effectively integrated in traditional curriculum to accommodate diverse learning needs without compromising the learning experience for other students? So let's kind of unpack that. So how can inclusive teaching strategies be effectively integrated in traditional classes? So, I think that we have, we want to be clear about what we believe IDEA says about inclusion. You're not doing somebody a favor and you're not being nice to them. We are providing children with disabilities the opportunity to be educated with their non-disabled peers to the maximum extent possible. And we want that to be successful. As professional advocates, we want that to be successful. We are the first people, myself and our team, to tell our clients very soberly if we don't believe the data supports general ed inclusion in content area or certain content areas is appropriate at this time, right? So our job as advocates is to look at the totality of the information and give next steps and actionable items to parents so that they can make informed decision. And I think most of the time, parents and schools would have much better collaboration if we were just fully transparent, right? And so, indicate to the parent, we are missing a teacher in this area. We are short a staff member. And so parents are understanding that happens. They're not understanding to nobody in special education ever saw their child for an entire year. That's when it gets a little bit sideways. And so it's not about inclusive teaching strategies. We want to make sure that when we are including a child with disabilities into a general ed class, that the rate and volume of grade level content is appropriate. The rate and volume of grade level content is appropriate. And so what does that mean? We're teaching, fourth grade state standards in math. We have got to go through all of these units of study, right? And sometimes that's good for kiddos and sometimes it's not, right? So we want inclusion to be on the two legal, pendulums that we're always looking at in special ed. And what are they? Meaningful benefit and harmful effect. And we know that they're both always in play. So meaningful benefit and harmful effect are always in play, even if the student isn't removed from the general ed classroom. So often when people are filling out that section in the paperwork, they think that we only talk about meaningful benefit and harmful effect if the student is removed, right? So if a student receives special education and related services under IDEA, the rest of the class knows that they're getting extra help. And so we're always trying to juggle those things, meaningful benefit, harmful effect. So what are some of the things that we do not go into general ed for under IDEA? We don't have a child be included in a general ed content class for inclusion solely for socialization. That sounds good, but socialization is not a state standard. Additionally, we don't want a child to be included in general ed if all we're going to do is have them sit with a staff member at the back of the class. I was in a meeting the other day, and the teacher said, the general ed teacher for a little boy that was going to general ed said he does really good at science. He sits with the para with his classmates in the back. And what she meant was, and I appreciate her being honest, is this student is in a self-contained autism unit for core content. And when he's pushing out to science, his whole class goes together, but they all sit at the back with a para. So that's not inclusion, right? So inclusion is not just intersection, right? It is working with your peers, working with that teacher of record. And so we want to make sure that when that happens and it's successful, that they are included, right? So I think that we have a difference of opinion of what is intersection and proximity and inclusion. So it's really easy. So if you go out to a restaurant tonight and you're eating dinner at, the Olive Garden, and there's a table next to you with a different family or different friends, while you are close and in proximity, you're not included in that other table. We have that a lot with kiddos that go to, let's say that they go with their general ed peers to lunch. So the question that I will ask is, are they going to lunch with their non-disabled peers? Yes. Oh, okay. So the students that are in the self-contained class are sitting in between general ed students from their grade level. No, they sit together at another table. So that's not inclusion. So we have to differentiate inclusion and being close, right? Because we want that student in general ed to benefit from inclusion. If there's no benefit for the student with a disability in inclusion, and there is more of a harmful effect for the non-disabled peers, then we have to recalculate that, right? So we want to make sure that when we've agreed upon inclusion, that the student would benefit from grade level standard at the rate and prosody, even if we have to accommodate or modify his work, then that's what we do, right? And so we're not asking general ed teachers to change their teaching strategies as it relates to students with disabilities. We are asking that a special educator implement those special education minutes or a para implement them under the direct supervision, close proximity, and frequent contact with the special educator, okay? And so when we look at that, parents and advocates and team members, we're looking for meaningful benefit. We get to LRE, we talk about meaningful benefit and harmful effect, and we really want to calculate that. We don't want inclusion to be a check mark, and we don't want it to be unrealistic for the educator that's providing that grade level instruction. And so on the flip side of that, often we will have school districts, leadership. When I say leadership, I mean principals, somebody from the district that they need to be in. They got to stay in the general ed class. They just have to stay in the general ed class. Karen, they have to stay in the general ed class. I would be so sad if he was removed from his non-disabled peers. Okay. Tell me what you're sad about. Well, if you put him in resource, which is the continuum of placements, right, under 300.115, then he will miss the full range of curriculum. Correct, right? And so when we're calibrating that, does the meaningful benefit outweigh any potential harmful effect? They're both always going to be in play. They're not going to go away, right? And so when you have kiddos, especially this time of the year, that are 2, 3, 4 years behind academically, you're going to be hard pressed to convince me that there's a meaningful benefit from him staying in grade level English, grade level math. Just going to be a pretty hard sell, right? So if what the teacher of record is teaching is state standards, right? And then that student, based upon their academic levels, is 3 years behind. Let me see if I got this right. So you're going to teach a 7th grade reading class, and then he goes to his seat and works on 4th grade work. Or you give him a 4th grade book, right? And so we don't want there to be such a gap that we wasted his time listening to grade level content, because what he's going to produce will be modified. So when we're looking at that, that's sort of the threshold that you want to look at. We have to be realistic about where kids are instructionally, starting with reading, right? So one of the things that I have all my partners do, and every parent, whether your child is 5 or they're graduating next month, I want to know 3 things about reading. I want to know what is the student's instructional reading level, right? What is the student's independent reading level? What are the students' words correct per minute with 4 errors or less a minute? So let's talk about that. So what is your independent reading level? That is the level at which you can read with rate and prosody with 4 errors or less every 60 seconds, right? So if you're reading for 60 seconds and you have more than 4 errors, then we need to reduce the level of the book down so that we can get to a place where you're at 3 or 4 or less errors, right? We've seen a lot of the tsunami of Amplify, M-Class, NWE, Amira, HMA, ma'am. So here's what we're doing for reading. I'm going to give you a grade level passage that's nonfiction, and I want to cold read. That's it, right? Knowing that software doesn't accommodate or modify a student, but we want to know what is his independent level, right? And then we build from that. Number 2, what is their instructional level? What does that mean? So instructional level is a little bit of frustration, but I'm going to be instructing him as he's reading and having acquisition of this new level. And then what is the point or the importance of WCPMs? So we look at 90 years of oral reading fluency. 90 years of oral reading fluency. You can just type in Google 90 years of oral reading fluency, eric.ed.gov, and then they will give you those numbers. Why are those numbers important? Because the volume of work a student has to do in the upper grades requires a lot more reading, right? And so first graders read on average 59 words correct per minute. 59 words correct per minute. 5th graders read on average 138 words correct per minute. So I've seen this wave of present levels now that are like, Madison reads 190 words correct per minute. She doesn't, ma'am, she does not read 190 words correct per minute. So when you get data in your present levels that seems exceptionally amazing, you just want to make sure that we're looking at the same data pieces, right? So if you look in the EPIC IP, we talk about in the present levels, we go really deep in that. Why do we go deep in that? Because the present levels, right, are going to drive everything good and right for the IEP document, okay? So figure that out. So if the school says, oh, Ms. Cunningham, we don't do that anymore, that might be true, but we can do it, right? We can pull teacherworksheets.com, give them a grade level passage that they've never read, right? And that's not decodable, right? So often when you unpack reading information in the present levels, there's a lot of layers to it. So I just want nonfiction, grade level, what does he read in 60 seconds, right? For me, when I'm testing my kiddos, my parents, I will have them do 3 minutes so that we can kind of figure out where he is at. Also, you can't have such a chasm between the person that prepared the present level and your video of him reading at home that they're completely opposites, right? The other thing that we're finding by amazing educators, amazing teachers, even amazing reading specialists is they literally have stopped counting errors because the software said you don't have to count errors. Okay, well, any reading specialist would tell you that we want kids to be good readers and we want them to have 4 errors or less, so we have to count errors. And so recently I had a little boy and they just said he was reading so good. And so I listened to him read 3 videos, passages he'd never read. One had 23 errors a minute, one had 20 errors a minute, and one had 19 errors a minute. And the person at the school told me, but that doesn't make a difference. It does, right? If I'm having that many errors, it's going to impact comprehension. So we just want to make sure that we're measuring the same thing. Also, when you get a reading level, a range, a lexile, make sure that you look up that on your computer so that you understand what that means. Because sometimes they'll say, well, his range is 580 to 1350. Okay, so we really want to dial down so we can be specific with the need, then we can be specific with the intervention, right? And so I would say reading is going to impact a student the most at school because there's not a class that there's no reading, right? And so make sure that you have that in every present levels. Number 2 is I'm going to ask, what is their writing? And when I say what is their writing, if you had to guess, Lauren, you are, John's language arts teacher, right? So just kind of guessing, looking at John's handwriting, how far behind would you say is he in his handwriting? Now, the great thing about teachers is they have like fairy dust and they can read hieroglyphics, right? Teachers can read stuff that other people can't, but I need him to be able to write with the 3 S's and the P, right? Spacing, sizing, spelling, and placement. Spacing, sizing, spelling, and placement, right? Do the words look correct on the page, right? Is there continuity? Is there space between words? Sometimes kiddos are like, it's just one run-on set of letters, right? So those things are important. And so get that level when you're doing the present levels. And then number 3, get what their math level is, right? And you just ask the teachers. The teachers are the smart ones because they work with the students all day long. So if you ask good questions, the teachers can provide you great information. So I would say, Alan, you are John's math teacher. You've been with him all year. If you had to guess, how many years behind would you say John is? And they will answer you immediately, right? So there's information that we need to put in the present levels that just hasn't been gathered yet by the campus. So we want to make sure that we're gathering those pieces of information so that we have pristine, prescriptive, puffy, present levels, okay? And then these books are in the TikTok shop. Lauren, Alan, give me a thumbs up. Is the TikTok shop little orange purse showing? It is. Alan said no. Lauren said yes. Okay. So Lauren is calling Alan dishonest. So maybe it hasn't gone from Dallas down to Waco, but it's coming, Alan. It's coming. Okay. So do you guys see the orange box? Yes. Rochelle said she sees it. Somebody says not on my laptop, maybe on the phone app. Okay. Okay, it's there. So you can get the book, you can get the bundle. We're going to start teaching this starting the 20th, Monday the 20th. We're going to start teaching this in the Special Education Academy. We're going to train you on federal statutes and how you use them in an IEP meeting, whether you're a parent, an advocate, an amazing educator. Okay, so make sure that you're doing that so you can get any of those books, any combination of those books. Okay, so remember, kind of back to the original question when we're asking about, do I need teachers to have inclusive teaching strategies? No, I don't think that's something separate. I just want to make sure that that general ed teacher has in fact been provided the student's IEP. Often, if a student doesn't have an IEP goal in a content area, maybe they just have behavioral goals and related services. The general ed teacher is not aware that they are should be taking data on IEP goals. So make sure if you're a general ed teacher and a student with special needs is in your class that you've been provided the totality of his IEP. Okay, good questions. So this is what I love. What evidence-based interventions have proven most effective in supporting students with specific learning disabilities? So evidence-based interventions and research-based interventions are super important, right? Although it looks like iReady is getting their pantaloons sued off them. Did y'all see that? I didn't know that you could sue iReady, but they obviously did something wrong. So I don't put much stock in a curriculum, I put all my stock in amazing educators, right? I could have the world's greatest curriculum. I could have Nyhouse. I could have, what are the other ones? Orton Gillingham, right? Any of those big name brands for dyslexia. But if you don't understand how to implement reading instruction, it doesn't really matter how good the curriculum is. And you might have some really junky curriculum, but you have an amazing educator, right? So educators change outcomes for children during the instructional day. They do. They're our most important and valuable resource. So understanding that just putting a student in a class with research-based interventions doesn't necessarily, and Scottish, right? Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Doesn't necessarily change outcomes. It's the delivery of that, right? Do you know how to provide reading interventions that change outcomes for kiddos? And so we're never chasing a name brand curriculum. We're looking for ridiculously amazing educators, which are at every school. Okay. How can educators foster a growth mindset in students with disabilities, particularly when they face significant challenges in their learning processes? So that's a good question. We are not asking educators to close the gap. We're not even asking them to close the door, right? I think often educators, you can just tell by their reaction at a meeting, they feel responsible if a student didn't meet their IEP goal. They feel responsible if we couldn't mitigate a behavior. They feel responsible if they didn't meet an expectation in the state test. That's not what we're looking for. Great advocates are not looking for that. We're looking for educators to provide students their IEP and to adjust instruction so that they can make gains on their IEP goals. So a student is in special education, we're not expecting him to make the same progress as a non-disabled peer. That would be silly, right? And so we can tell as advocates and parents, all the amazing educators out there that are, doing their best to educate kids with disabilities. We're not looking for that. But, growth matters. Yes, of course, growth matters. But you could have the most amazing teacher and the student not have an acquisition of learning that you expect based on IEP goals. And so it's really important that when we have a student who is not making expected growth on their IEP goals, that we come back to the table and talk about what needs to be adjusted. It might be the setting. It might be the product we're putting in front of them. It might be a conversation that we need to talk about. Can their work be modified instead of just accommodated? And so we're not expecting any one person to change the unique circumstances of a child with a disability, but we are excited to partner with educators and schools and teams to provide the student an ability to participate with their non-disabled peers to the maximum extent possible. Okay. What role does family engagement play in the education success of students with special needs? And how can educators effectively work with families to support their children? That's a great question. So, family engagement. So I don't see a lot of inviting family engagement in the IEP process. That's not the fault of teachers. That's not the fault of paras. It is just not something that has been really important as schools roll out their programs and, back to school night and those sorts of things. And so often you see, as the great Alan Durr says, that we work and teach in silos. And I would like to see parents invited to participate in the IEP process in a way that's helpful and user-friendly. When I want to work with a client, I don't send them an email and say, Lauren, I am sending you a 20-page document. Please fill it out. Always, never, sometimes, often, right? So usually we're sending parents checklists or a very vague question, any concerns for this year. And so I think that it's a much better use of our time, like our time and our emotional time, if we just picked up the phone. Let's pick up the phone and call Robin and Alan and go, oh my gosh, we've had a great year with Madeline. Anything that you would like to have input on, any suggestions that we could make, any areas of need that maybe we're not seeing. Easy peasy, just pick up the phone, right? And so then we wouldn't be in meetings where there is this gap between what is typed out and what is going on with that child, that the parent has the input. And so I would like, going forward, if the case manager would just call the parents, right? Hey, Brett and Lauren, just checking in. Is there anything that you need from us before the IEP meeting? Doesn't have to be a long, 45-minute conversation, but you would get so much further in the IEP process if you just picked up the phone and made that call. IDEA says that parents are the expert in the child, and they are, because nobody has known the child longer than the parent. And so, that would bridge that conversation, because often we get to an IEP meeting in April and we've never met the case manager. We didn't know there was a case manager. We, didn't know the name of the speech pathologist. And so, whatever we can do to connect those pieces in the beginning is great, right? As for the parents, I always have my parents at the beginning of the year provide the school what I call a ZAC pack. And that is the parent makes like a one sheet and puts like a 4x6 picture of the kiddo. And in one sheet, here's Jerry. This is what he's working on. These are his eligibilities. These are gains that we've made. These are areas that these are his successes. And this is where he's still struggling. Here's my information. Here's grandma's information. Best way to reach me. And then also I would attach to that a complete printed IEP, right? So school-based members do not always receive your child's IEP. How do I know that? Because of all the open records that I've pulled. And so we want to make sure that we are providing the IEP. It's hard for the teachers to provide the IEP when it wasn't emailed to them, right? So on back to school night, or whatever we call it, if your kid has 7 teachers, if your kid has 2 teachers, I would provide a full printed copy of their last annual IEP, the whole thing, and give it to whoever provides him an educational product. His teacher, his switch teacher, his music teacher, his PE teacher, his art teacher, if they're in elementary school, right? And then the upper grades, when we get to 3rd and 4th grades, then we have 2 sets of teachers. When we get to 6th grade, we've got 7 or 8 teachers, because who doesn't want a bunch of teachers? And it's my experience when not open records, but when the teacher bundle, you guys know what the teacher bundle is? The teacher bundle goes out a week before school starts. And usually as I see them, the teacher bundle will go out to people that are collecting data on IEP goals. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that limits the people that understand the student's IEP and what their accommodations are. So we relieve that burden from the district or whoever's emailing out the 8 million pieces of paper that go to teachers beginning of the year. And just back to school night, we just provide a full copy, the picture, the one sheet, how to contact us, the best way to contact us, and a full copy of the IEP. So I'm going to put that for the 4th grade PE teacher, the 4th grade music teacher, the 4th grade art teacher, and his 4th grade science and social studies teacher, and his 4th grade math and reading teacher, so that all of them have a copy of it, right? Often schools have things locked down, and so the teacher couldn't even get to them if they wanted to. So provide that to the educator. And then I would say also, once you have a chance to look through, Eric's IEP, if you have any questions, just reach out to me. I can probably provide a quick clarification around it, because kids are never paperwork, right? But we are required to deliver the IEP as agreed upon at the last annual IEP meeting. So that will mitigate that, okay? Let's see. How can technology be used to leverage and create personalized learning experience for students with different abilities? And what are the potential drawbacks of relying on technology in the classroom? Do we love technology? We do. When we're ordering on Amazon, we love technology. So I think that, technology is great. We know the Assistive Technology Act of 1988, which was reauthorized in 1998, and then finally reauthorized in 2004, indicates that technology has an amazing impact on individuals with disabilities, whether they're in school or they're in the workforce, right? So it's a really fine line, right? Allegedly we don't have school books anymore, but I think we do. We also know that the American Pediatric Association has said for the last 40 years that a minor should not be looking at a screen for over 60 minutes a day. And obviously I'm not a member of the American Pediatric Association, so I think that we have some benefits to the technology in classrooms and then some drawbacks. So most states have or are adopting no more cell phones for kiddos in school. Yay! And so that's good if you're good at managing a classroom, right? But again, we've let kiddos have cell phones for so many years and now we're taking them back. But I think that's a good idea, right? Additionally, you want to make sure that when your child is getting instruction on a computer, that it's a supplement as it relates to special ed. It's a supplement, right? And so what does that mean? Cindy could have the world's greatest Dreambox or iReady or iExcel or all of those things. Those are a supplement to initial instruction. So when we're in meetings and the special educator says, well, he does this on the computer and he does this on the computer and he does this on the computer, the most amazing computers cannot make a product accommodated and or modified in the totality of the student's needs. So you do have the ability to ask for your student to have paper, and also make sure that when they've completed a work product that you're receiving it. Right, we'll get to this point in the year and I'll ask the parents, did you get it home? Did you get any graded work home? And in the meeting, I'll be told everything we do has to say at school, which is kind of weird to me. If everything we're doing has to say at school, how could they go home and do homework, right? Doesn't make sense to me. So if that's the case, that's not a problem. You want everything to stay in a composition notebook. I get it. Then I would just ask for copies of the pages of that composition notebook when you get progress reports, right? The other thing is we want parents to know what students are working on at school so that they can reinforce it in their homework, right? We can't reinforce something if we don't know what we're working on, okay? So I don't know about the old Chat GPT. Are you guys using Chat GPT? Do we all use Chat GPT? Are we dating chat? Yeah. For myself and our partner advocates, it's pretty easy to see when Chat GPT has been used to create components of the IEP. It kind of has its own little red flag. Certainly if you want to use Chat GPT to find out what is a 4th grade math goal, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But then you would look at your child's unique circumstances to make it, appropriate for that. Somebody said, no, I hate Chat GPT, use Copilot, much better. Yeah, the AI war is on, right? You don't want Chat GPT, you want Claude. You don't want Claude, you want Bob. You want Jerry Sue, right? Somebody said Chat GPT stinks. Oh, well, don't tell my phone that, okay? So, but yeah, so we can use technology. I don't want kiddos sitting in front of a computer all day. I don't. So there's that. All right, how can teachers cultivate a classroom environment that promotes social emotional learning for students? There are social emotional curriculum, right? Michelle Garcia Winters, or is it Michelle Winters Garcia? I always get it backwards. So if that's part of the content area that the teacher is teaching, social emotional learning, I think that's fantastic. I think a lot of schools now have character club. What is it called? I don't know. I'm not in school. But teaching, characteristics of leadership and appropriateness and forgiveness and respect. All those things are great. But we're not expecting teachers just to pull it out of the air. But if that's a curriculum, thank you, Characterize Strong. Thank you. If that's something your school is teaching, then, certainly overlay it into the class day when it is appropriate. Let's see, how can behavior management techniques be adapted to meet the individuals of students with behavioral challenges while still providing a positive classroom environment? So, in LRE, we have a question that's very specific, right? So LRE is not a location. LRE is a consideration, right? We're looking at programming options and needs before we talk about placement. So the question is, does the student's behavior impact his learning and or the learning of others? And so, I see a lot of people on the social media who are very mad at the child that's disabled that has behaviors. Are there children that have behaviors that don't have a disability? I guess so. That would not be surprising, right? So I don't have any control over what principals set up for classrooms. Obviously, we want a student to be successful with their supplementary aids and services and supports, but we're also realists, right? If a student is not successful and they're not learning in that environment, then we need to look at other environments. And so the first primary concern should be for everybody in a class is to be safe, right? If we're not safe, we're not learning. And so we don't have families that we serve that we just say, oh, he's got to be in there. That's his right. It's an obligation, duty, and responsibility for us as an IEP team to look at his total needs right now, right? It's not a forever thing. It's not, you can never go to gen ed, but where it's appropriate, right? And sometimes that setting is appropriate and sometimes it's not. What we do know is behavior is communication. If it's a disability, and sometimes they're communicating, ow, 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 this isn't working, right? And so I think that when we look at kiddos that have behavior challenges and they're growing those behavior skills, that we give ourselves a framework, right? Not just, well, he's going to go in there this year. Let me know how it works out, Miss Simmons. No, but that we look at things soberly every, grading period. Was this successful, right? I'm not going to send them in there for 2 days and go, oh, that didn't work. But was it successful? And if it wasn't, that's okay. Can we do something to make it successful? Or is this setting right now not appropriate for him? And so I don't have any say in how how principals set up classrooms. I'm only on the outside, but certainly we hear from our followers and the people that we train and teach. Over 75% of them are educators, and we know that teachers have asked for support and they've been denied support. And so I don't have any control over that. I can certainly give, consideration and phrases that we could use in emails to document your position. But we certainly want kiddos to be able to learn whatever their educational needs are. And so we have to look at those from a leadership lens so that everybody has an opportunity to learn. Okay? In what ways could teachers advocate for systemic change within their institution to better support the needs of students with disabilities? That's a good question. So it's something we're working on. We hear teachers from all over the United States, and they all have the same questions, concerns, and they go to leadership. They go to leadership and say, hey, Mr. Smith, this is not working with this combination of needs and this classroom setting. And they are told they're doing a great job. Don't forget your why, and going back to your classroom. So in the business world, we would never do that, right? We would never have somebody, changing tires, but didn't have the ability to change tires, right? So we have to have more of a business mindset when we're looking at classrooms and settings. Is it successful, right? And so in business, we're looking for successful models. And so we hear that teachers are frustrated. We are starting in June an academy solely for educators. We are starting in June an academy solely for educators because their concerns and needs are very different than parents of a child with a disability or special education advocates. And so that will start Monday. I think it's Monday, June 1st, right, Lauren? June 1st is a Monday. And so that will be every Monday night at 7 p.m. So that'll be the Epic IEP Educator Academy, which will be different than the Epic IEP Academy. Because we want to be able to serve teachers, equip teachers, resource teachers, and how to be unified when they're at school so that change can happen and so that they understand their rights and how to have actionable outcomes when they work with leadership or people at the district level. So that has been a long time need, and we're pretty excited that we're going to start that in June. And so how many weeks does the academy last? So the academy is forever. So the Special Education Academy has been around since March of 2021. What is that, like 2 weeks ago? So over 5 years. And so this will be a new academy that'll be an hour prior. You will need to be a school-based member to participate in it. And we're pretty excited about resourcing teachers, equipping teachers, providing them language and strategies and supports that are helpful for them to continue to be even more amazing educators than they already are. And we want to give them that. And we're excited about the Amazing Educator Academy because they need it. They need it. They need to know how to, build teams of adults in their school. They need to know how to get access to resources, who you would reach out in the district to make that happen. Because, they're just paddling all day, right? Teachers are trying to, serve every kiddo that comes in their class every day, which might be 30 kiddos. It might be over 200 kiddos, depending on what grade level. And so we don't believe that school districts currently fully support in professional development educators. And it's a need. And so we're excited about bringing that to educators. Okay. All right. What are the key procedural rights parents hold under the IDEA? All of them. What are the key procedural rights under IDEA? So we just did a training on procedural rights and safeguards. They're all unbelievably important. Your procedural rights and safeguards are for parents of a child with a disability and the individual with disability. And so they were put in place so that should there be bad leadership at a school, parents would have a way to respond in a legal process. And so what are the key procedural rights in special education? I think for me, one of the most important parts for participation in procedural rights in special education is the parent to have meaningful participation in the IEP process. Meaningful participation. Somebody said, who enforces those rights? I do. I am the enforcer, right? So we want parents to know what their procedural rights are. So they're available at your school. They're actually the last pillar in the 7-part pillar of the EPIC IEP. Because I always say that if you don't know you have rights, you don't have rights. And if you don't know what they are and how to invoke them, you still don't have that right. And so we want to make sure that parents' rights are protected so they can make sound, supported decisions and that they can have equity and involvement. And reminding everybody at the table that parents are equal stakeholders. They're equal stakeholders, right? And so that it's not, the parent is being provided a draft, and if you like it, great. And if you don't like it, then we have to agree to disagree, right? So I think for myself and our other partner advocates, that's what's most concerning. And still, we got a long ways to work on that. And so I think that often schools believe that they write the IEP and then ask the parent if they have questions about it, just because that's how they've done it. That's the practice that they've done it. But under IDEA, parents and the school are equally valuable in the IEP process. And that's everything from evaluation to development, review, and revision of an IEP to placement decisions. And so those are things we got to work on. But your procedural rights should be provided to you at every annual IEP meeting. Your school has a copy of them on the website, or you could just email whoever your IEP lead is for a copy of your procedural rights and safeguards. But they're important so that we all have our understanding and protections under IDEA. How can parents initiate a request for an evaluation to determine if their child qualifies for special education services? So that's really good. So we have a very simple process. I know a lot of agencies and entities have this sample letter that has 8 paragraphs in it, and I have rights. I just don't think we need to do all that. So if you were my client or somebody I was training, I would say it's very simple. Here's the email. It's 3 sentences. 1, 2, 3. 3 sentences when requesting testing for special education. Dear staff, this is my formal request for my student to have special education testing. Period. You have to make that noise too. That's the first sentence. Next sentence. Areas of suspected disability are, and then I would talk about the characteristics. I wouldn't say the word dyslexia. I wouldn't say the word autism. I wouldn't say certain words, because often when evaluators hear that, they only test in that area, right? So I would describe the characteristics. So areas of suspected disability are attention, behavior, emotions, sustaining, regulation, those sorts of things. Next sentence, I look forward to coming in and signing notice and consent. That's it. 3 sentences. So once you've sent that email electronically to the district, they have how long to respond to you? They have 15 calendar days, right? So at the end of 15 calendar days, they will either grant the testing or they will deny the testing. Both of those outcomes require a prior written notice that are legally populated in all 7 areas, okay? So let's say that your school grants the testing, which would be fantastic. Then you would need to go in and sign notice and consent. There is no timeline between when said school grants the testing and they have to acquire your signature. So, do whatever you need to do to expedite that process, because until they have your signature on the notice and consent, it doesn't start the second timeline, and that is for evaluations, okay? So easy peasy. Dear staff, here's my formal request for my student to have special education testing. Next sentence, areas of suspected disability are behavior, emotions, language, communicative, social, emotional, those sorts of things. Third sentence, I look forward to coming in and signing notice and consent. Well, Karen, I pick up my kids every day, so I can just tell Mr. John in the car pickup line, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Mr. John's very busy in the car pickup line. So put it in writing. That starts a timeline. And if you don't get a response in a couple days, just, reply back and just say, I'm bumping this email up. Because people get busy, schools get busy, and we often don't get to the table and get those documents initiated and started. And what a child will never get back is time. They'll never get time back. So depending on where you live in the United States, the testing timeline could be 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. Those are all school days. And so in Texas, it's 45 days for initial evaluations. That's 9 weeks. 9 weeks. And then another month to come to the table and to have an IEP meeting. So that's a lot of the school year that's gone. So make sure that we're getting that in the correct timeline when we see an area of need. Okay? What does the term, this is funny. It's not funny, but it's funny. What does the term free appropriate public education mean, and how does it apply to procedural rights? That's a good question. So the term free appropriate public education is completely subjective, right? So the free is that it's at no expense to parents. Okay. Appropriate is going to be what's appropriate where you live based on circuit courts, right? So there's 11 circuit courts in America. I live in Texas. That's the 5th Circuit Court. So that's Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Not the most parent-friendly circuit court. So hearing decisions, due process, those sorts of decisions by hearing officers might look very different than they look in Connecticut. And so those are based upon a number of things, but it is free, meaning the parent doesn't have to pay for it. It is supervised and delivered by the local education agency. There has to be educational and special education services at the elementary, junior high, and high school levels. And so FAPE is always what we're looking at in an IEP meeting, right? So what is FAPE? Number one, did the school meet their legal obligations procedurally under their state education agency in the IEP process? So procedurally, that means the processes of it. Did we get paperwork signed? Did we give out a notice? Did we give enough time? Those sorts of things. Very rare. It could happen, but it would be very rare that even if you had a procedural violation, it would rise to the level of a substantive violation. And so that's the first part of the FAPE question, which is the Rowley-Andrew decision. the Rowley Andrew two-part FAPE question. So question number 2 was the substantive question. Did the LEA, did the local education agency, enable the student, make them able to progress appropriate in light of their circumstances? So that is from the Andrew F. decision, March 22nd, 2017. It's been around for 9 years. And that is the obligation, right? That the school is charged with enabling the student to make progress appropriate in light of their circumstances. And so that is the definition of FAPE. And so when there's a disagreement in an IEP meeting, that's where those components break down of what a parent believes is FAPE and or what the district is proposing that is FAPE. What specific information must schools provide to parents before they consent to an IEP? There's not any specific information the school needs to provide to the parents, other than when they they don't consent to an IEP, that they agree to do testing for areas of suspected disabilities for students who may need special education and related services. So initially in the law, that's called zero reject, which was the child fine system. And I believe those lawmakers in the 70s believed that if a parent or a professional or somebody suspected a disability and requested testing, the testing would happen. That's not our experience for a number of reasons. And so you want to make sure that when you are in a meeting and you request an IEP testing and you're denied testing, that the district does in fact provide you a fully completed prior written notice meeting all 7 components so that parents can know their next steps. Let's see, what are the timelines for schools to provide parents notification of a meeting related to their child's IEP? So, schools can ask you for a meeting tomorrow. I don't ever recommend that we go to a meeting tomorrow. I want to go to a meeting when I'm prepared. If you have the ability to get prepared for a meeting right now until tomorrow, then that's fine. The parent can call an IEP meeting at any time, and the school can call an IEP meeting at any time. So there has to be, from the school's position, at least 5 days notice, 5 school, business days. And then additionally, if the proposed time for the IEP meeting offered up by the school doesn't work for the parent, then we have to work together and look at a mutually agreed upon time. Say it with me, mutually agreed upon time. Often when I'm in IEP meetings, somebody will say, Ms. Cunningham, we only have meetings for this grade level on Tuesdays. Oh! So you're denying the parent 80% of school days to have IEP meetings? And so, if I have the time open that you've offered for my client, I'm going to give you that time. But I don't have somebody else I can send in, unlike a school. You have a lot of English teachers. You have a lot of PE teachers. You have a lot of principals. And so it might be a little cumbersome, but we have to work together to find a mutually agreed upon time. The obligation of the district is to log and provide appropriate notification to the parent. So there might be a dad that has custody, mom that only has, non-custodial rights with, a couple of weekends a month and maybe one day during the week. But the school has an obligation to notify both parents, both guardians, whether they're together or not together. Usually you will see there's a log for that. But we don't just send out an email and go, Desiree didn't respond. We're having the meeting without them. So one of the things that I hear live in person in IEP meetings is, if you log off, if the parents leave, say it with me, we're going to go on without you. I wonder who taught you to say that, because that doesn't sound very good. You're going to go on without me? Oh, that's problematic, right? It sounds like a threat. We don't threaten parents in an IEP meeting any more than parents should be threatening schools. But we get to certain points in an IEP meeting where maybe the advocate had scheduled out 1 hour and 45 minutes, or the parent has another commitment. So, I've never been in an IEP meeting where the school says, oh, this is our stop now at 1 o'clock. I've never seen a parent go, well, you can leave, but we're going to go on without you. Parents don't say that, right? And so we need to work together, even in the most hard IEP meetings, but we don't say we're going to go on without you. That doesn't ever look good to a state investigator, because that would sound like we're not equal team members, right? So remember, there are two places where it talks about IEP team membership, or IEP teams under procedural rights for the parent. Number one is, did you provide the parent IEP team membership, right? And number two, did you provide the parent an opportunity to meaningfully participate in the IEP process? So would recommend that we don't use that phrase, we're going to go on without you, ever again. That doesn't work well. Okay. All right. Let's see. How can parents access their child's educational records, and what part of those records are they entitled to review? Entitled to review. That's a good question. So let's look at what does the law say, right? Not what does an employee say, but what does the law say? So if you get out your Epic IEP law book and we look under 300, do you guys know what your statute is for your rights for access? So it's going to be 300-603. 300-603. So we go to that statute, we look it up, because sometimes in a meeting, school-based members don't understand the totality of the law, or somebody else told them the law and they get it a little bit off, and that getting it a little bit off might deny the parent their procedural rights and safeguards, so we certainly don't want to do that. So 300.603 says, it's near the back, imagine that. 300.603 says that the parents have educational rights and access to records. And so most educators that I know do not have not been, I guess, trained or educated on what are the parents' educational rights to records, right? So often I will hear in a meeting, well, you know, those are the teacher's notes. Those are the PT's notes. Those are the principal's notes. And so I don't disagree with you, but that is a limited understanding about who has access rights, okay? So we look at access rights. We're looking at 300.613. 300.613. Not 300.613. 300.603. Or maybe it's 613. I just need one more pot of coffee. Is it too late to have a pot of coffee? I think it is too late to have a pot of coffee. So 300.613. 300.613 called access rights. And it says each participating agency must permit parents to inspect and review any educational records related to their children that are collected, maintained, or used by the agency under this part. So let's go back. So access to parent records, right? Every agency must permit parents to inspect and review any educational records relating to their children that are collected, maintained, or used. Okay, so I had a teacher one time tell me that those were notes of personal memory. I like that. I mean, that's great, but they're the child's educational records. So certainly don't need your order for Panera Bread, right? I don't need that. I don't need the, you know, the back to school 4th grade math teacher roster. But anything that you use in the educating, teaching, staffing records, the parent has the right to inspect and review educational records. They have the right to a response from the agency to reasonable requests for explanation and interpretation of the records. They have the right to request that the agency provide copies of records containing the information. If failure to provide those copies would effectively prevent from exercising their right to review the records, and the right to have a representative of the parent inspect and review the records. Okay? So people often will call me and say, Ms. Cunningham, I went to get my records, like you said. Now, the school district says I owe them $17,462 million. Wonder where we got that from. So let's jump over to 300.617. 300.617, and it says, each participating agency may charge a fee for copies of records that are made for parents under this part, if the fee does not effectively prevent the parents from exercising their right to inspect and review those records. A participating agency may not charge a fee to search for or retrieve records, right? And so often we are told that it took us 75 hours to get these. So that would be what? That would be searching for and retrieving information. So when I go to a school, I would just say, hey, Alan, I've brought a zip drive or a floppy disk or a piece of stone that we can chisel out the information. But it protects the parent. If paying that fee would inhibit their right to participate, then you cannot charge that fee. But certainly if a parent wants, one-sided copies, then you're allowed to charge for copies. You're not allowed to charge for locating and retrieving them, okay? So 300-613 are access rights, and then 300-617 are fees that relate to that. Good question, okay? Why would a parent want records? Because we believe that the successes and challenges for a student in special ed might be better identified if we can look at all of the records, right? Another set of eyes, kind of looking at what the instruction looks like, the FDL, the frequency, duration, location, those sorts of pieces. So in Special Education Academy, which is free for you to join for the first month, we train every Monday night. That's one of our resources. We have a very robust FERPA FOIA form in there that parents and advocates use to access their records. So if you want records, my recommendation would be that you make these two forms, get two original copies, you sign them, go to legal. So legal at your district is probably where we have school board meetings, where the superintendent's office is. I would take in those two forms with my ID and say, hey, I'm Karen. I'm the parent of, Cindy Luhu. I'm here to get her educational records. Today is April 13th. And I just wanted to give you this form. Could I get you to sign it for me? If they want to sign it, great. If they don't want to sign it, that's fine too. I would take a picture of it. And then that starts the 45-day timeline. 45 calendar days. Doesn't matter if you're standing there December 20th or July 1st. It starts a 45-day timeline that they are obligated to produce and provide an opportunity for you to review and inspect. Not all records can be provided by copy to you. So let's say that, Lauren wants to look at an evaluation, but it was a psychologist that did it. There are certain protocols that they can't share with the parent. And there's certain tests that they can't give a copy of, but they can certainly let the parents inspect them, right? So understand that parents are equal stakeholders, and it's important that we allow them their rights. What role does the state education agency play in supporting parents during disputes with local schools? So I don't know that they play a role in supporting parents. The state education agency will have dispute resolution options in every state. They're the same dispute resolution options. In our state, in Texas, we have a dispute resolution option handbook. We talk about those 6 dispute resolutions. They are, number one, a district grievance. We call that a waste of time. Don't do that. There's no point in doing that, right? But you can do that, a district grievance. I've never seen an outcome that the parents felt like was helpful. Number 2 is a state complaint. Number 3 is a mediation. Number 4 is a dispute resolution session. Number 5 is due process. Number 6 is a filing with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. But your state should have forms around those and kind of how you start that process. And certainly we never want to, I don't think anybody's goal at the beginning of the year is, ooh, I can't wait to disagree with the parents, or I can't wait to disagree with the school. That's not my experience. But disagreeing is absolutely part of the human experience. You know how I know that? You ever try to go have dinner with somebody, right? So I don't know why we get so upset that we disagree at IEP meetings. The reason there's different stakeholders is because we see things differently, and our information is unbelievably valuable. And so it's not unusual that a parent would disagree with an offer from the school. It's not unusual that the school would disagree with an offer from the parent. That's not unusual. I think that when we act like we're offended by it, it's bizarre, right? So, I've been in a meeting where the principal has said, we have worked really, really, really hard on this. And that's fantastic. And we appreciate that. But you can work hard on something in the wrong direction, right? And so when we honor each other and realize that we all have value at the table, I think we can get to consensus a lot quicker. Instead of, sometimes when I train people, I always tell them this is a business meeting. It is not personal. It's not personal, right? And so, sometimes when we're not in a place where we remember it's a business meeting, the business of educating a child with exceptionalities, that we probably need to take a break, right? Let's see. How can a parent obtain support from advocacy groups when navigating the special education system? So, good question. So we talk about advocacy groups. All states have a parent resource network. It has a different acronym in each state. And those are federally and state funded. They give general guidance, like tip sheets, fact sheets. They will provide trainings in the educational service centers. So I would reach out to your state education agency and ask for that parental advocacy agency, and they can tell you that. There is a national entity called Disability Rights. Disability Rights. They are federally funded, and they represent families in special ed meetings. They are attorneys. Their purview and scope of the families that they serve have great specificity to them, and have different requirements. They might have so many kiddos that are of this ethnicity in this age range. They might have so many kiddos that they serve that have a single mom. They might have so many kiddos that they serve that the student has a guardian. I don't ever know what those parameters are, but they're pretty tight. They are attorneys, and so they're advocating on behalf of the parent. So those are the sorts of agencies that are available. People always say, where are the free advocates? I don't know where free advocates are, but I know that there are many great full-time advocates. That's what they do for a living. But I know some states have state advocates. We've met a few as we're going around the country. But it just depends on what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for people that have expertise and great training and understanding of the law, the application of the law, the letter of the law, you're probably going to have a higher investment in having that advocate. Somebody says, I shouldn't have to pay for an advocate. I don't know if you should or shouldn't. I mean, I shouldn't have had to pay for a divorce lawyer, but I had to pay for a divorce lawyer. So, it's something that's available for parents when that's right for them, right? Emotionally, financially. And so, usually when you go into an IEP meeting, there's the parent. It's usually one parent, right? And 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 school-based members. So it's already, a heavily weighted process that can be pretty isolating for parents. Okay. What are the key components of a prior written notice that schools must provide to parents? Well, they are unbelievably important. There's 7 components of a prior written notice. I think what schools often fail to do is understand what those 7 components are, and that they're not optional, right? So when we get opening documents from a client, usually something's missing, right? We might have to go, hey, Lauren, I didn't get the progress report from 4th grade, right? There's something missing. Here's what advocates rarely see in special ed paperwork: a prior written notice, period. Not a good one, a bad one, a medium one. It's not my experience that schools unilaterally produce a prior written notice, but then they're bound by the language in that prior written notice. And so what is the point of the prior written notice? So that the school has a legal obligation to lay out how they came to a decision to choose to do something or choose not to do something. And so instead of, well, we got into a meeting and the school said this and I disagreed, right? And so it is a legal requirement for schools to populate it, whether the parent asks for it or not. And so, You'd be surprised at what we see when we actually do get a prior written notice. One of the things that I find funny but not funny is that often schools will put their 7 sections. It's already in the software that your school uses. And in one of the sections it will say, please list other options the district considered. And it will say NA. No. This is not like croutons and egg and cheese on a salad. They're all applicable. You have to fill them all out. So we just, in Special Education Academy, we have over 400 hours of past content that we've provided that's archived there, and you can watch them in series, but a prior written notice is required to be delivered to the parent with 5 days notice. So once the parent is in receipt of it, then the 5 days starts, okay? So if you're in an IEP meeting and they're going to have maybe a placement decision or an eligibility decision that you disagree with, I would sign and disagree, and then I will also say that I don't waive my 5 days. I don't waive my 5 days, and then you could use those 5 days to have a response, choose to file due process, or consider next steps. I had an IEP meeting with one of my clients in January. January. It's April. Not only have we not gotten the prior written notice, we haven't gotten the special ed paperwork. But how important is that? I mean, take your time, right? And we are in a stay put with them. So let's see, I'm going to answer a couple more questions. Thanks you guys for all the gifts. We appreciate it. Again, I don't want to hold them up all the time. I probably should just like make this out of a, Lauren, can you make me a necklace? Like a book necklace. I could just be like, you know, who was the guy in the 80s that had the big clock on his, on a necklace? I'm so old. That's what I need. I need that. So any of our books that we have are in the TikTok shop below. There's an orange cart. So we have, of course, the Epic IEP, which was the first book that came out. This is a Flavor Flav. Thank you. This is a powerful playbook for parents, educators, and advocates navigating the IEP process. At the end of every chapter is a checklist, depending on your role, to understand your obligations, duties, and responsibilities. Then we have the Epic IEP federal law and state statute guidelines. And then we just came out with this, the Epic IEP para. So it cleans it all up in case you are getting information that may not quite be accurate or meeting the legal standards of how amazing paraprofessionals support educators. Okay? All right. How does the law protect parents from retaliation by schools when they exercise their procedural rights? So protections under the law only come when you invoke your rights, right? So do I see that? Yeah. Do I see it a lot? No, I see it enough, right? And so I wish that didn't happen. For the great people in special ed, they're great. For the few yucky people in special ed, they're yucky, right? And so have I seen, you know, parents invoke their rights, get counsel, get a great advocate, and the school district push back? Yep. We have a school district that we're about to go visit with a press conference because they just can't seem to get it together. They lie at every meeting about almost everything, not a little bit, like just the whole process. And then this one person from the district speaks on behalf of everyone. Everyone. And she doesn't even work at the campus. So we have had, you know, we go a long ways before we file or do next steps. Somebody says that sounds like my son's district. I know. But we're doing a press conference, and we're going to have a public press conference with the news stations there to address ongoing special education violations. We don't see a lot of special education systemic violations, but when we do, they're hurting every child in the district, right? And so we don't have to agree, but you don't get to just lie. You just don't, because you're handicapping children and you are misrepresenting the law, which is illegal, unlawful practice of law. That is educator misconduct. And when you are from the district level and you come to a campus and you make all these statements and nobody refutes them, then those staff members think that you're obviously telling the truth because nobody refuted it. So I am a professional refuter. Is that a word? Refuter, Lauren? I would think that my scale score for refuting is in the superior range. Like just off the chart. Somebody said my district lies, and when I speak up, get retaliated against. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So, I have, families that stand up for something, and next thing you know, there is a knock at the door from Child Protective Services, refuting specialists. Yeah. And I can't do anything about petty, but I can do everything about protecting the rights of the student with a disability, and the parent, and, starting to train teachers on their rights starting in June, because they have plenty of rights. A lot of states don't have teacher unions, and even teacher unions now, I feel like they're less helpful for the teachers. So we want to start serving them. Somebody said Leander School District. I grew up about 10 seconds from Leander. I grew up and went to Lake Travis when there were 34 people in my graduating class, and we filmed it on a beta. You'll have to search that up. But graduation took about 11 minutes. So thanks, you guys, for reaching out. If there's anything we can do for you, let us know. Remember, when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. Get your book or your book bundles on the TikTok shop at the bottom. We will start Monday, April 20th, working through the EPIC IEP, federal law. They're really great when you understand them and where you implement them in the components of the document or the meeting. Because we want you to be fully equipped however you sit at the IEP table. And we have Special Education Academy that starts every Monday night at 8 p.m. Central. So if you're interested in growing your knowledge base around special education, however you sit at the table, join us. The first month is free. Can't make it a better price than that, but it's a pretty good price for you. And so you'll know after a month if you want to continue with us. It's a monthly subscription. There's no long-term commitment. You can come and go. And so we would love to have you and make you a powerful special education boss, navigating this process however you sit at the table. So remember, when you get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. And we will see you guys in the next training. Hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change, we're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody.